Johnny tells me he wants to rule the world someday. If I could just roll it for a minute, for 5 seconds, he says, maybe someone would look my way. Johnny sits and writes his own poetry sometimes. When he does, Johnny looks up at me and asks if it's any good. I tell Johnny yes, but he looks me in the eye and looks back down at his paper. He crumples it up and throws it in the trash, and he starts writing again. Johnny looks out the window and then back at me, and he tells me he wishes he could be the best at something. I laugh and say, "You're great at tons of things, Johnny." Johnny says he's not so sure, and he looks back out the window. Johnny keeps an empty frame in his room. He says he's keeping it for the first picture he takes with his friend. I laugh and I ask him, "Aren't I your friend, Johnny?" He smiles and says yes. One day, Johnny comes home with a sad look on his face. I ask him what's wrong, and he just looks at me and walks up the stairs to his room. Later, Johnny goes outside. He just looks up at the sky, and I wonder what he's doing. He just stares at it for God knows how long, and suddenly he starts screaming and screaming and screaming, and I just watch and listen. He cries up at the sky and asks, "Why me?" He comes inside and he looks at me and says, "God's dead. He's always been." Johnny stares at me with a mad look on his face, and he yells at me and says he wished he had a real friend. Johnny says if he could just get anyone to understand him, he'd finally be happy. The next day, Johnny comes home from school and says he'll show everyone now. He'll show them who Johnny truly is. He'll make them look up, and he'll make them squirm and scream and cry out his name. He says now they'll see his face. Now they'll know his name. He says now they'll wish they'd known Johnny. Now they'll wish they had understood him. Now they'll wish they had seen Johnny Randle. Johnny goes up to his room. I hear his radio turn on. I hear a whimper. Then I hear a cry. I hear him cry and cry and cry, and then I hear nothing. I see Johnny's mother come home from work. I hear her call for Johnny to come down for dinner, and when there's no reply, she walks upstairs to Johnny's room. I hear her open the door. I hear a whimper. I hear a cry. I hear a scream, and I hear screaming and screaming and screaming. She saw Johnny Randle.